Welcome back to Foiling Week 2021. As we have said before, we are pre-recording this episode, and along with the live episodes and people chiming in online from around the world, this session will be on the IMOCA class. Every year we check in with the IMOCA class's developments, but more and more, because the boats are using larger, more powerful foils, they become more and more relevant to Foiling Week, and their influence on the rest of the sailing world and sailing community is stronger and stronger each year. We saw with the Vendée Globe was a huge success. I think Antoine, our guest, Mermot, would tell us that it's not just because people were locked up in their houses in a pandemic. I think people are starting to really pay attention to the skippers and to the boats, and it might be a combination of the fact that they're going faster, but also people are able to share their stories more. The skippers are being challenged, and we have to talk about the design advances of this and what that means to the sport. So without further ado, I will introduce first our co-host, Cole Brower, reporting right now from Block Island, Rhode Island in the United States. And Cole is a growingly excellent solo and double-handed sailor, just having won line honors in the Bermuda 1-2 single-handed and double-handed race from Newport to Bermuda. And so she is a rising star in the solo offshore world. So say hi, Cole.
Hi. Hi.
Welcome. And representing the IMOCA class is Antoine Mermot, coming from Lorient. And say hi, Antoine.
Hello.
A multiple guest on the show. And finally, from the design side of things, Sam Memoir from France as well. His design, L'Occitane, was an excellent feature in the last Vendée Globe and is racing now in the Ocean Race Europe. And Sam is also working on Jeremy Bayou's new Chiral, which is going to be, I don't know what stage it is, Sam will explain to us, but Sam is here to explain to us the advances in the class, how it affects the skippers, and some other changes in the new technologies. So hi, Sam.
Hi, guys.
So thank you all for joining us. One thing that I want to talk about right now, and I think I'm going to throw this one to Antoine, is the advent over the last two editions of the Vendée Globe and the TJV and all the big IMOCA races around the world has been the introduction of like heavy lifting hydrofoils. And two editions of the Vendée Globe ago, it was just a very few boats. This last edition, there were a ton of boats, but it was not your standard Vendée Globe. So it was a little bit of a mixed bag to see how the foiling boats featured. But Antoine, how important has the introduction of larger and larger foils been to the success of the class and the success of the Vendée Globe? Is it really important that the boats are performing with hydrofoils, or is that just a small part of their success?
It depends what you mean about success.
Yeah.
The point is that the IMOCA is a class that is an open class that makes that the boat, you have to develop them as much as you want within the rules, but then you can do more or less what you want. And since 8 years, thanks to all that happened in the foiling world, in the America's Cup, but also you were talking about the C-class or everything that has happened, we could see that using C-foil allow to be faster on the boat, on the seas. That's why a few skippers and the first designer start to have and how we can to that smaller foil, and we could say that it was like a booster in any condition you had a huge time, but it shows clearly that it gives a big advantage to the boat when they were able to use them. But then in 2020, then the designer moved forward and with to larger foils, because that makes that the range of use of the foil is larger, and then they can use it and be really faster compared to the other in more different condition. And that makes that we are year after year working to develop and also to solve the problem, because sailing was in a small bay, it's something, but going around the world single-handed in a lot of condition, it's something else. Then it's now 8 years that we are working very hard to improve, to find the solution, the structural solution, the design solution, the way of sailing solution, the autopilot and everything. And now I think that we are in a time in which we can be very confident that our boats are not Archimedean boats; they are really skiing boats, and the use is amazing.
And Antoine, you just broke up there, but can you hear me right now?
Okay, it's fine.
Okay, perfect. So I'm following you, and I just have one question before we go around the panel. What is the feedback that you've gotten from the events that you're running, from the that the IMOCA is in? So like from the TJV, the big ones, and the Vendée Globe, and now from the Ocean Race. What do sponsors and the public want to see more of, or what are they most impressed with the current IMOCA boats and skippers?
Yes, in my first answer, I was dealing about the sport and the racing advantage of the foil. But now you can have a look on the commercial side. The commercial side is the technology. A lot of fans are strongly following the technology of the boat and how to improve, and how we can just improve and building new things and push the limit. And that's for sure that before the Vendée Globe or before the Transat Jacques Vabre, it's a lot of debate, discussion. That's maybe what we are doing now about what is the right design, when is the good time to use them, and then it makes also on the table a lot of very interesting debate between the fan, which push to very good commercial value for the organizer. And it's also the video and the footage. It's not a lot of boat and manual boat that are carrying lead that are flying, and then we can also provide a very impressive video footage that also help to increase the commercial value of the event and then also of the team.
Awesome, and we'll move on to the design specifics in a second. But Cole, as a kind of a top solo and double-handed offshore sailor, when you look at the IMOCA class and you look at the events and the skippers and how they get to those, get to do those events, whatever their pipelines may be, what do you think is so special about the IMOCA class from the sailor's point of view? Do you think it's something that for a solo sailor, it's something you just have to deal with and it's a big, fast, crazy boat? Or is it something that the sailors really enjoy, boats like Class 40s and IMOCAs that are specifically made for solo sailing?
So I've sailed the Mini and now I sail the Class 40. And so I truthfully, Antoine, have not sailed an IMOCA. It's a dream.
That will come. I'm sure.
One day, but it is like I think the rite of passage is always, you start in the Mini and then you go to the Class 40 and then you go to the IMOCA. And I think now it's like you go to the IMOCA non-foiling and then you go to the foiling. I mean, at least that's my perspective from watching the Vendée, every 4 years. And so I think for my perspective, I look at it like, oh, if I want to do the Vendée, I'm going to have to start in the non-foiling, just because of money, sponsorship, experience. Will I have the right autopilot, that can keep up with, foiling, non-foiling, foiling, non-foiling, and so I think I question all the time of, when I make proposals to sponsors, you make two different proposals, I assume, for the IMOCA, the same way that you make proposals for the class 40, you make a bunch of them that are tailored to specific sponsors. And so for the, I'm sure for, younger sailors going into the IMOCA class, they now have to make a plan, an expense plan, because the foiling is definitely more expensive than, if you can get a used non-foiler. And I definitely liked to watch the Vendée this last year, because you saw that even the non-foiling boats were still able to kind of push, and maybe that's because they're older, they're trusted, they have that toughness, and they have a lot less things in the water that can catch on debris and things like that. And so I'm kind of really open to the idea of foiling, 60-foot monohulls. That's fantastic. I think just for as a younger perspective, I see it as so far in the future for me that it doesn't even seem possible. I think a lot of times it's hard to relate to the younger populations who don't have $10 million to spend on a boat, on a foiling monohull. And so, maybe one day it will be in the cards with sponsorships and things like that. But I think a lot of younger sailors almost think like, oh, well, if you want to do the Vendée, you've got to go into the non-foiling first. You have to just find a used boat somewhere and find $1 million and just shoestring budget and just try to make it work to start.
I know that Sam has been, through your design, Sam, you've, through minis, through class 40s, all the way up through, the path that Cole is talking about yourself. And so tell me a little bit about, going like fast forwarding to now and the latest designs. Your last boat, obviously every person I talked to last fall, and Antoine, you were on with Guillaume Verdier and Juan K. And everyone I talked to, even those designers, are like, so what boat do you think is the coolest or you're most interested in? And they're like, L'Occitane is, I'm very fascinated to see what that boat does. So maybe as someone who took a little bit different approach to a very new idea, which is the foiling IMOCAs, tell me how things turned out with the design with Armel Tripon in the Vendée Globe with L'Occitane. What did you learn from it, and what are you working on next?
What we learned from it is that I think the direction in the design we took, the path we took was trying to design and build a boat that would be probably easier or less demanding on the skipper to achieve average speed. That was really the goal. Unfortunately, Armel had some setbacks very early in the race. Like already at day 3, he broke some hooks and damaged some sails. So that took him far away from the leading pack. So I think there are still a lot of questions that are not answered yet. I guess overall, and the last Vendée Globe also clearly showed that, back to the Occitane story. It's the fact that it's pretty hard to achieve average performance, to be always at, let's say, even 80% of the performance of the boat. It's super complex because of the sea state, because of the instability of the wind, because of the psychological difficulty of that race as well, especially in the south, where it's pretty hard to define the pace. So all in all, I think the designers, they have to take that into account and make sure the boats are usable, basically.
What do you think the your boat had a lot of differences in terms of the hull shape, the foil shape, where the foils came out of the. There were 100 other details that were innovative in their own way that we couldn't even see. But what do you think after seeing the competitiveness of the non-foiling boats, the older generation foiling boats? The Southern Ocean was a little bit different than people had expected. What you're designing a new boat right now. What's your biggest takeaway? And maybe if you can let us know one little area that is an improvement from the lessons of that Vendée Globe and design wise.
Well, definitely we try to make a more robust performance. So it's like we want to be able to push more the speed, and especially downwind. So all the boats right now, they're super fast in reaching angles in all the conditions where it's kind of not easy, but it's kind of not so complex to find some good equilibrium. But definitely when you are sailing with the waves and in downwind condition, then it makes it much more difficult. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And maybe the dog of Sam was not really did not really agree what he said, huh? Or he's got his own idea about the performance for the next design. Huh?
Exactly. While he's going to do that, Antoine, he was talking about making the boat less demanding on the skipper, which the human element adds to the long-term performance, the better average speeds if the skipper is more comfortable. And the one thing you and I talked about last fall was, and a lot of people talked about it, was with the boats flying higher out of the water, there were structural issues with that, with the boats falling from higher heights. But one big discussion we had is, did we understand how the skippers were going to be able to manage that kind of, they said that there was very uncomfortable motion compared to the old boats. So how did it turn out in this race? Our worries about the human element and the skippers being able to deal with the physical uncomfortableness of the newer boats. Did that turn out to be true?
Yes. The point is that, it's the balance to design a boat for the Vendée Globe is very, very complicated actually, because the Vendée Globe is a unique race. You need a very fast boat. You also need a very ruggable boat. And also you need to live and having a skipper 3 months on board. And the point is that, foiling offshore on a monohull, we can say that it's a revolution. I would say 10 years ago, it was not a dream to imagine that one day we could do what the boats are doing. But then, in the other end, it's a huge job from the designer to manage to find the right solution. A huge job of all the structural engineer as well to put everything together, and then the skipper to use the boat. Then I would say that like all the huge evolution, it takes time to have everything together. I have to say that we are moving a lot forward, and I think that more and more we are able to put everything together. There's also this project, the fact that the ocean race will be sailed with IMOCA next year is a massive improvement for us as well, because using the boat on crew will also help a lot to know better the boat, to develop the boat, also to make reliable the boat, and then to have more data. That makes that it's every day that we are all working very hard to solve everything. But the goal to put everything together, boat plus reliability plus skipper for the Vendée Globe, is something very hard, and it's only once every 4 years.
Yes, true. And so on that note, I want to kind of connect Cole and Sam on this one. Because we're going to be talking about this with the design of the AC-75s, and is that, Sam, consider Cole as one of your skippers for your boats that you're designing. And Cole, this is your profession. So your goal is to compete in offshore solo and double-handed races in class 40 in IMOCA. And she gets on Sam's latest design, but she's the pilot. And you don't know how sometimes the boat's going to handle a full lap of the planet. What's the conversation like between a skipper like Cole and yourself? Do the skippers ever come back to you and say, I'm not going to drive this thing, it's too fast? Is there a limit?
Who are you asking this, to me or to
I'm
Cole?
asking kind of both of you. Like, Cole, do you worry about what you're being thrown into with some of these boats? And Sam, at some point, do we need to work with the class to not narrow down the parameters of the boat because they get too dangerous to sail?
Well, I wouldn't. Sorry, yeah, go ahead, Cole.
You can go, don't worry.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that these boats are dangerous to sail. I mean, these boats were able to go around the world. They're perfectly safe. I mean, they're built super strong, etc. So of course we are learning as we're going, because we're developing new sailing technique, new sailing features like the big foils, etc. So obviously we don't get it right, because with the development of the design and the technology, there is also a different way of sailing the boat. So as we go along, we discover new things. So we have to adapt. But if you look at the last Vendée Globe, almost every boat went to the finish. There was very little breakage. So this is something to notice, and that's a great achievement for the overall industry involved in the IMOCA. Now, about the relationship with the skipper, there is probably two aspects. So one aspect is how not to break the boat, and the other aspect is how to achieve performance on the boat. So there are almost two separate topics. And definitely not to break the boat. What we are focusing the most on is about the rig. So definitely the rig.
Focusing on the what?
On the rig.
Oh, the rig, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So the rig is a one design rig, and it was designed for a boat without foil, actually. So it was designed for a given riding moment, and that riding moment we are exceeding it by far with the foils. So definitely when you start sailing an IMOCA, first you have to focus on not overloading the rig, and really understand well all the loading on the boat, the relationships with all the elements, etc. And once you have that cover, and then you can really concentrate on the performance on the boat. But definitely, I would say that these boats are super, super, super fun to sail. So you're focusing a lot on the fact that it's uncomfortable, okay, but you get used to it. But they're super fun. I mean, they're really great to sail. So I would really focus on that as well. These are excellent.
Yeah, and Cole, from your perspective, I mean, you know what it's like to, class 40s to me don't start to become fun in over 30 knots, they're really great. What is it about the IMOCA that like you're attracted to? I mean, because it's a big, fast boat.
Well, I think I can only relate it back to the class 40 because I haven't been on the IMOCA, and I only see what's in the newspapers, the what everyone's talking about. And so I think when I relate it back to the class 40, when the race that I just completed 2 days ago, you get into a 40 knot squall, and the first thing you think about is like, okay, we need ballast, we need to move the stack, we need to shrink sail area, and you're mostly you're shrinking everything, and it's, to help the boat, but it's mostly to help the autopilot. It's like, how can the autopilot be able to drive? As we have NKE instruments and stuff, and so I've been kind of pushing into the instrument world a lot and trying to understand that, because and so I think my question actually for Sam is, how do these boats, do they work the same way under the autopilots, like as a regular boat, or do they actually, is it easier for the autopilot because as the foils assist the boat, does it reduce the load on the rudders or rudder actually, and does that allow for the autopilot to actually drive smoother, that you can push, have more sail area out, rather than shrinking sail area when you get into, more breeze. And so you can actually push the boats even further with the foils because your autopilot can drive, which then allows, the sailor to like not have to do as many sail changes. And if that makes any sense, maybe I'm just rambling.
Yes, it does. It does make some sense. The main difference between, let's say, Class 40 and the IMOCA is the fact that it's the overall loading on the boat. And on a Class 40, it's almost like a small boat, so you can really push it. Therefore, you will find the limit of the autopilot. Whereas on the IMOCA, the overall loads and all the system makes that you cannot push as hard on an IMOCA than you can push on the Class 40. Therefore, the autopilot is not really the limit. On an IMOCA, you have to always think ahead, think about how the wind is going to change, and because everything is difficult on an IMOCA, like you want to make a sail change or you want to change the stack inside the boat, it's a massive work and it's super demanding physically. So you have to always plan ahead, and so in that sense, it is very different from the Class 40 or the Figaro or the Mini.
Yeah.
And it's much more like on the multi-hull, where you always have to think ahead, think about what's going to happen in the next hour, in the next 3 hours, and in the next day. So I would think that it's probably more like that you would approach sailing on an IMOCA. And actually having the foil or not the foil is not a major issue as far as autopilot is concerned.
Oh, interesting. So do you think like if you were to sail the foiler versus the non-foiler, and we've been talking about being comfortable on the sailor, and do you think that after a while of getting, that it's more like we're just weeding out the weak, and we're moving with the times of like, okay, well, if you want to go fast and you want to have fun, then you go into the foiler? And do you think that that's where we're that eventually we won't have any non-foilers anymore?
That's a good question.
Like the question is, will we see one day races without non-foilers?
Yeah.
I don't think so, because the beauty of the IMOCA class is the fact that it attracts many different types of sailors, and it tells many different stories. So you have, in one sense, it is the pinnacle of offshore sailing and solo offshore sailing. So you have the super competitive skippers, but you also have the more adventurous type of sailors, and it's great that the IMOCA can provide both of it. So you have a very and that was a little bit the beginning of the discussion. Like you have great stories. And for having great stories, you don't need necessarily to have high-tech boats, etc. But the beauty of the IMOCA class is that it brings these two sides of the spectrum. super high-end technological race and super competitiveness, but as well the more more adventurous side of it.
Cool.
I mean, I would just add something is that, you know, first of all, the IMOCA boat is a monohull that is going around the world. And with foil or without foil, it's a boat with a good stability. And it's very safe to sail in IMOCA if you are sailing with 1 reef, 2 reef, or 3 reef, whatever your level. But if you got a foiling IMOCA, then a skipper that is quite comfortable with its boat, then he could push to a limit that he feel that is good enough maybe to win the race, but also that he feel that he's got the level to push to this limit. But if not, you take 1 more reef and then you put G2 instead of G3, and then it's a monohull, you know, and then it's quite safe. Then I would say that the point is more the skills of the skipper or the confidence of the skipper to push or not. With a foiler, you can push very far away, but you can also sail very safe if you are not trying to reaching the limit.
Cool. And so I want to do 2 things. We've got like 12 minutes left or something like that. And this is an awesome conversation. So thank you all for being honest. And so the first one will be kind of a technical one on the rules and the design. And then the last one will be this, what we're seeing with the Ocean Race Europe and what kind of influence that is. And also to Cole's point, when we spoke before this, as a pipeline for younger and female, more equity in terms of gender equity, and seeing what the Ocean Race is doing with the IMOCA class. So the second to last question has to do with the rules. So Antoine and Sam, what's the latest in terms of your rules meeting? Anything has changed since the last Vendée Globe and the IMOCA rules? And how does that affect designs? Are we going to see, are we still talking about rudder elevators? Are the masts going to still be one design? And obviously you were right, Sam, the boats were really reliable, very exciting that almost all the boats finished. And if they didn't, it was just something random. So what's new with the IMOCA rules and how is that going to affect the look of the boats in the future?
Yeah, go ahead, Antoine. You're the president.
No, I think I can deal with the rules, and then you can deal with the future, how it affects the boat for the future. Then actually there are no big change for the next cycle. The main discussion was to limit the size of the foil, because at one point it goes bigger and bigger, and then it was long to build and also quite expensive to build. And we all agree that the size was good enough, and then it was good to put a limit, more or less, which is the limit of what Hugo Boss has at the last Vendée Globe. And regarding the T-rudder, it won't be a law for the next cycle. That means until 24, we won't have an IMOCA with T-rudder. But it's very likely that the next cycle, 24 to 28, it could be one of the top. It will be on the top of the things to make to improve the boat. But now it was a little bit too early to finish the job, because first we need to be able to use the boat we've got now very well around the world, and I think with all this knowledge we will be ready in 3-4 years to add the default.
Cool. And now, Sam, are the boats going to look any different in the next 2 years? What's Charal look like compared to L'Occitane?
Well, you will see when we put it in the water.
Give us something.
No, you'll have to wait a bit more.
It will be black, isn't it?
Yeah, it will be probably black with a big bow on it. Yeah.
So, but there's a lot of room to work with, even though there's a limit to the foil size, right? There's a lot you can work with right now.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. There is plenty of room for improvement on any department on the boat, and yeah, definitely. And talking about what's going to happen in the future, it's for sure that the T rudders they look super tempting, and that would also maybe for the Vendée Globe 2028, that would be a massive game changer, I think. So right now, the decision that the IMOCA class has taken is quite good in a sense, because we are taking advantage of all the experience acquired for this cycle. So for sure, the next boat will improve in the fact that there will be more efficient, basically.
Right.
And then we will probably move to another cycle where the boats are going to be developing new technologies with the T rudders. And for sure, we can expect that with the T rudders will come much higher speeds,
Yep.
and therefore we'll probably face new structural difficulties and a different way of sailing as well, and it will have probably impacts on many other things, like also sail designs and how you deal with the navigation and the routing, etc. So it will definitely be a game changer.
Well, not everyone can be like Jean Le Cam and sail into their 60s to be able to wait till then. So let's talk about the ocean race and a pipe. This is what we'll end on. We'll talk about the ocean race, and I'm just seeing at the Ocean Race Europe having the crew to IMOCA that the mix of young male and female sailors that are getting the exposure to those boats, that has to help the class, and that has to help the events like the TJV and the IMOCA series and the Vendée Globe. Don't you think, Antoine?
Yeah, that's for sure. It's the equality in gender on board the boat is something very important, like in a lot of other sports. And as Sam said, you know, in a sailing perspective, actually the problem sailing in an IMOCA is always to sail in advance, and then to be able to have your everything in your mind of what will happen. And then that's something that the female sailor, they are making very well. And that's why you can see that at the last Vendée Globe, and also when sailing IMOCA, most of the female sailors, they are really competitive. And then then that confirm that it's very good for us to help the young women to come and sailing IMOCA, because they could be at the right level, they could win a race, and also they strongly they could sail, you know, as they take the same start than the male skippers, and they can win. Then it's very interesting, and thanks to the ocean race and the crew racing, it's a very good way to promote that, to give confidence to this young female sailor, and then to hope that next Vendée Globe we would have more and more female sailor, and maybe a winner. You know, Helen MacArthur was not so far many years ago. Then it's maybe it's you.
The winner. I mean, that's I've been waiting for a long time to see if there will be a female sailor. I think there's a lot of females. I can only speak from the United States, but I know that like a lot of my really close friends that are girls, we all watch the Vendée, you know, and we dream up these ideas. We watch Sam Davies do, you know, even though she had to retire, she still goes to the finish and, you know, makes a heart with her tracker. And, you know, it's just you can see that a lot of the female skippers, you know, I think there was what six female skippers in the last Vendée, and you can see that they're definitely pushing a lot more women into the sport. And so like I love that the IMOCA, or at least the women in the IMOCA class, are so legendary. And so it's nice to see, you know, because I don't know that many women in the class 40 fleet, honestly. I maybe there's not enough publicity that gets to the United States on that, but I see the IMOCA and I see, you know, the publicity that comes from that. And then also with the Ocean Race Europe, and watching, as, you know, I think from my perspective, watching the Ocean Race Europe, and you have, you know, you have a bunch of people like Pip Hare, who now is sailing on an IMOCA, and then so you have all these guys that came from the Vendée and immediately went into the, you know, into the Ocean Race, and you can see that. I mean, I like to watch that because they're not just one trick ponies. They can be well-rounded. They're not just solo sailors. They can work together and learn how to push the boats and work together. You know, I think solo sailors get pushed into this category of like, oh, well, they just want to be alone and sail around the world by themselves because they don't get along with people. But I think that they do actually get along with people, and the reason why they sail around the world is because the camaraderie in the class has to be that good. That's why I'm a solo and double-handed sailor, because the camaraderie in the class 40 class here in the United States is so strong, and it pushes me to want to do the IMOCA, because I'm sure the camaraderie in the class and the fun and the excitement, and especially I feel sometimes that in the class 40 class, there's just so far that you could push before, you know, because it's not a developmental class. You know, there's so many rules that you have to, you know, kind of, you're a little restricted, a little choked. And so I do like to see what the next step in the, you know, Vendée and in the IMOCA is, because, you know, it is a developmental class. And so you can constantly keep moving the class forward, and everyone's always really nervous about developmental classes, but I don't know, as a young sailor, I like to see what's going to happen next. So it's a good thing.
Awesome. And I think, you know, a bunch of people going back to the Ocean Race, to take a developmental class as extreme as that, set up for solo and double-handed sailing, there were a lot of critics. I was even really skeptical. I'm like, you know, stay in your lane, IMOCA, you know, you're a single and double-handed boat. But what I noticed was that you know, going back to, you know, Cole's position and looking for opportunities and pipelines, there for the Vendée Globe, there were, you know, everyone for themselves, maybe take the pipeline of Mini, Class 40, Figaro, and now you have a whole bunch of female sailors, spots that just did not exist a couple months ago. And those are like real opportunities. And I think that decision to join the Ocean Race is going to result, I mean, I believe, and maybe Antoine believes too, that will result in definitely even a growing number of female sailors in the IMOCA series, and eventually through the Vendée Globe and the other big events. And I guess my last question, before I ask you what your own sailing is up to date, is what is your hope for the class? What do you hope to see in just 2 years' time? Sam, do you hope to have more clients, but a more diverse group of clients? And Antoine, do you just hope the class just keeps growing and has more events? Maybe Sam start.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, definitely. I hope Jérémy Sbeillou is going to be successful with his next boat, obviously. And yeah, I mean, to me, it's a great journey to be doing some IMOCA design. It's super interesting, very challenging, and yeah, I take a lot of fun of doing that. Also a bit of pride. Also, it's quite nice to be involved in this type of project. So yeah, let's see what future will bring us. But yeah, I would be happy to work on other projects as well. So let's see what happens.
Awesome. And Antoine, what
For
does
me,
next year to hold?
yeah, more for the future, it would be more non-French skipper, more international team coming, and also more female skipper, because I strongly think that we've got a fantastic game for designing, for sailing, for racing around the world. And it seems that the fans are really following that. Then it's good if it's not mostly in French. It has to be in a lot of other countries like US. Then yeah, more non-French and more female. That would be a goal.
Awesome. And last question for everyone before we wrap up, and thank you for participating, is Sam, what have you been on the water recently, and when's the next time you're going sailing?
I'm going sailing next Saturday on a boat we just launched, which is a 72 monohull footer, and yeah, and soon I hope I will be sailing with a Bureau Vallée 3, and yeah.
Cool. And are you did you grow up sailing in France, or are you late to the game for sailing?
No, I was.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was involved in sailing since childhood. Yeah.
Gotcha. Awesome. And then how about you, Antoine? Are you going sailing? And
yeah. But less than Sam, because Sam is a very good designer, but he's also a fantastic skipper as well. We won a lot of race. But now for me, it's with my friend. I've got an open 750, which is a small keel boat, which is more or less like an old IMOCA. It was a Fino and Verdier design, and yeah, I really enjoyed to sailing with my friend the weekend on this boat.
Yeah, and are you like Sam? Did you just grow up as a kid sailing in France?
Yeah, sure. And I also did a lot of race.
Cool. And then Cole, I mean, we kind of know what you're doing. What's next for you in right now, and then future solo and double?
The Bermuda one too was our big race of the year, and so I'd been prepping 6 months for that, and then we have another smaller race, and then the boat will go into a refit, get the bottom done, and redo the deck, non-skid and stuff, and so I'm the boat captain, so I will be prepping everything and kind of managing. I don't spray boat bottoms anymore. I started doing that a while ago, and I realized it's too dirty. So I don't do that anymore. But I will manage the refit, and then we will. I race out of Newport, Rhode Island on a lot of other One Design boats, and so I will be here racing everything and anything that they ask me to do.
Awesome.
And soon in IMOCA.
And soon in IMOCA.
We'll work on that. Now you reach out to Antoine and he'll let you know where they all are, and just show up.
I have a passport. I can get on an airplane.
Cool. Well, thank you everyone for bringing us up to speed on the IMOCA class, and also exploring just, you know, the interpersonal side, the human element, the design side, and the organizational side, and the event side with Antoine. Cole, Antoine, Sam, thank you so much for joining Foiling Week 2021. And we're really looking forward to seeing what comes in the next couple of weeks and months. And at least we got the ocean race to watch the IMOCAs near term, and the TJV in the fall. So thanks for tuning in, and we really appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers. Have a great day.